Now, continuing, there are the artists' compilations. These, well, these basically are released officially by bands and artists, these albums, these compilations. There are two ways of doing it most of the time. There were times when an artist was trying to break away from their current label, so they own the label another record. So most of the time the deal was, you know what, let's do a compilation, we finish the contract, and we move on. And compilations like that can also be like a gap filling. Let's say you took a year off the band, and then the next work is taking more time than you wanted. So for you to not have this break between albums like 3 years, a compilation or a live album sometimes, it's a great way of, you know, make the fans aware that you're still alive and well. And as I was saying in the first part of the video, this is a great way for people to know. I can give you some examples in this particular collection. I bought some time ago this Seal compilation. It's called Hits, simply Hits. It was released in 2009. This edition is the double one, so you have a bunch of really great stuff. His hits, his B-sides, some unreleased tracks, some live tracks, really great stuff. And this is the kind of thing. I've heard a couple of Seal albums, but I'm not really a big fan. But I love some of his material. So how do you work with that? Do you buy the albums even if you don't like all of it? On my opinion, you buy the compilation, especially one like this. And compilations like this. And another one that I have here, Greatest Hits from the Offspring. I think they are great. Why? Because these two compilations, they have basically the same way of doing things. You have unreleased tracks, like 1 or 2 in each of them. You have all the hits that everybody wants to hear in a compilation album, and you have some B-sides. On Offspring's case, you have some soundtrack tracks that were never released before in their albums, just in this soundtrack albums. So you have it here. The same with Seal. You have tracks that never appeared in his studio albums before. So this is the perfect way of having them without having to buy like 4 or 5 different albums. And another one I really like in my collection is Tears Roll Down, Greatest Hits 82-92 from Tears for Fears. Now, this is a band I really love, Tears for Fears. But I've heard all of their studio albums, and don't get me wrong, I love their albums, but I feel that they never really achieved the studio album that is truly great. You have these amazing tracks, like half of the album, and the other half that, for me, sounds like a little bit of a filler part. So a compilation like this gives me all the tracks I really love, like Sowing the Seeds of Love and Everybody Wants to Rule the World, Woman in Chains, Shout, Head Over Heels, Mad World, Pale Shelter. You have everything here, you know? But I have one complaining about this one. There is one track from Tears for Fears that's called Break It Down Again that is my all-time favorite, like my top 10 favorite tracks of all time. And it happens to be on their 1993 album called Elemental, and this compilation, as the name says, covers till 1992, so I don't have that one track I really wanted. But when I bought it, I knew, so that's okay. Now, another one of these that I happen to own, it's the best of R.E.M. in time 1988 to 2003. Honestly, this compilation is a little bit of a mixed bag. I bought it together with my wife. She really wanted as well. And there is one thing in this compilation I love, which is a little text for each of the songs. Like one of the members of the band wrote a little text about these songs. I love this kind of stuff in booklets. I love when artists and bands and managers and etc. write stuff on the booklet that you cannot know anywhere else, because these are their personal experiences and views on their own music. So this I love. But I must say that the track list of the album, although is good, it's not great, I would say. Now I will show you some CDs that I have history with. And because of this history, I keep them. Like, it's really important for me. One of the compilations is Early Days, The Best of Led Zeppelin Volume 1. This CD was released in 1999. And if I'm not wrong, in 2000 they released the volume 2, or almost sure it was 2000, if not was 1999 as well. This album here covers their first 4 records. And a nice thing about it, it's an enhanced CD. You have the video clip of Good Times, Bad Times here. And this is really nice. In the early days of the computer, this was absolutely great. Now, the booklet, if you can, I'm not sure if you will be able to see the details here, but the booklet is really worn out. And this is because the booklet is such a really bulk, such fat. The paper is really good, and it's filled with pictures and information about the songs, where they were taken, the dates, the places, and this is a really nice document for Led Zeppelin fans. I love this booklet, even though there is no history about it. It's more like a visual history, like a photo book of the band. And it's so worn out because I remember in my neighborhood I was the only guy that had a Led Zeppelin CD, so everybody wanted to borrow it, because back in the day I used to play bass and in bands, so I knew all these people learning to play the guitar, and when you're learning to play rock guitar, Led Zeppelin is one of them. You have to know. Now, there is one curious history. As I just mentioned, I used to play bass in bands when I was younger, and I remember I was starting with this new band, and one song that they wanted to play was Carry On, Wayward Son by Kansas. This is the Best of Kansas compilation that was released in 1984. Now, remember that this was still in the early days of internet and computer. You could find music online, but it wasn't that easy. And I remember that I couldn't find this song. Nobody that I knew had a CD or vinyl with this song, and I needed to learn how to play it. So I had to go to the shop and try to find a CD. Now, I couldn't find Leftoverture, which is the studio album that has this song originally, anywhere in Brazilian shops. But I could find Best of Kansas. Honestly, I don't hear this album at all. I just don't. Because I happen to own a bunch of Kansas albums, and I rather listen to their studio albums. But it's curious that I ended up buying a CD. It wasn't that expensive. It was around 15 reais, which is like $5 today. but still, I bought a CD just for one song. Now, this is a curiosity, because this is the Brazilian edition. This was released in Brazil by Sony Music. Now, you will not be able to see it from on the camera, but the differences between this edition, it's the Brazilian edition by Sony Music, and this edition, that is the British edition released on Epic, you cannot see the difference in the camera, but the printing of the Brazilian edition is just horrible. This, my wife had it, and I really didn't know she had it. So when I came to Poland, I was like, oh, look, we have the same CDs, let me check it. And the printing on the Brazilian edition is just awful. We happen to own a few more CDs, like double CDs, and the same goes for all of them. And the most, horrible thing is this. This is the Brazilian booklet. This is the booklet of the Brazilian edition. There is nothing on it, just the name of the songs and the writers. It's quite okay for a compilation. You see that many times. But this is the British version. You have all the lyrics, some advertisement from their albums, and all the lyrics from all the songs. Now, what happened in the Brazilian edition? I have no idea, but we suffered with that many times, and I've seen that many times before, and it's not nice. Anyway, moving on, the most important, I would say, piece of my collection, it's not really something fancy or anything. I mean, it is a bit fancy, but not really. It's more like an important thing for me, which is the Queen Greatest Hits, originally released in 1980. Now, why this is important to me? I also happen to own Greatest Hits too, and it's also very important. This is the Brazilian edition of 1991, the original Brazilian edition. This one happens to be the Japanese 1987 Japanese edition. And I love the way Japanese do their editions, because you have a normal booklet, nothing on it, just like the Brazilian Kansas Best of edition, but you happen to own this white thing with all the band's lyrics and the translations to Japanese. Now, this is amazing, really. This is amazing. And I've seen it in quite a few I have a couple of Japanese editions, and they're just great. I would love to have more of this stuff, the Japanese editions, but sometimes they are quite pricey, and as I said on my first video, I'm not really a collector, so I don't go around buying expensive stuff. Now, why this is so important to me? Because when I was young, at the age of 14 and 15, that I really started digging music, there were 3 bands I was really into. Legião Urbana, which is a Brazilian band. I happen to own a collection too. This is Mais do Mesmo, like translating, it's more of the same. Os maiores sucessos, like the biggest hits from Legião Urbana. And Legião Urbana, Engenheiros do Havaí, which is another band. I don't own a compilation of Engenheiros do Havaí, but I own many of their studio albums because I simply love them. And Queen were my first real big passion about music. Those 3 bands were the things that made me, the bands that made me, jump out and say, whoa! And this album in particularly, I remember I used to go to my cousin's house every extended weekend or vacations, and we used to play together there. He had a bigger brother, an older brother, that happened to really like music. And I remember one day I was passing through their living room, and this guy was listening Bohemian Rhapsody. I had no idea what Bohemian Rhapsody was back in 1998, but I was completely blown away by that, because it was such a different thing from anything else I've ever heard till that point. I was a little bit shy to just go there and ask, but I went and, what's this? What's that playing? And he's like, oh, this is Queen. And I was like, whoa, where can I get this? And he just went like, well, bring me a tape and I will tape it for you. That's what I did, and it was this album. Later on, I went there and taped this one too, because these were the only two records you could find in Brazilian stores, at least where I used to live. In bigger cities, you could find almost the whole discography, but early in those days, these were the two albums I could find. So that's what I did. I went there, and I actually used to have a Brazilian edition from these greatest hits, but I remember I got this Japanese edition, and I was like, look, I don't need two CDs of the same, and the Japanese is so much cooler, so I gave it to my brother, my older brother. And you know, these pieces of music are really so important to me. This CD, the Greatest Hits 2, I bought in '99. But this was an used CD, so this is the original 1991 edition. So this CD is basically 24 years old, which for me is just unbelievable. That, you know, it's so much older than I ever expect. Now, this video is almost at the end. I just wanted to show you one more CD that I got, because I used to do reviews quite a lot, and I still receive some CDs from time to time, and this was one of them. There is this German band called Lucifer's Friend, and this is their new album. It's actually a weird concept for a new album. The name of the album is called Awakening, and it's not really a studio album or a compilation, it's both. This compilation is a bit weird for me, because you have 10 tracks on the CD1, and it's supposed to cover their whole career, but it doesn't. You have like 4 tracks from the first album, 2 tracks from the second, like 2 or 3 albums are not here at all, and out of the 10 tracks you have 47 minutes of music, which is okay, but for a compilation, 47 minutes of music for me, for a studio album, is the perfect timing. 45 up to 50, it's pretty much what I like about, you know, the length of an album. But for a compilation, this is little. And the weirdest part is that the second CD, it's their new material, their comeback material, 4 songs, spanning 17 minutes, which meant that they could put everything in one CD, but instead they have 2. Which is okay, because the price of this CD is the price of a normal CD, not the price of a double CD. So it's okay. Now, talking about music, the music itself, Lucifer's Friend is a band that ended up being in the second, the second-rate kind of bands. They're not that famous, but I think they are side by side with the 70s name like Deep Purple. They were there. They were really good. And the new material is so strong, I wasn't expecting anything like that. So I really recommend this one, at least for you to check out the band. If you don't know the band at all, I think this is a very good opportunity to check them out and get the new material that they worked for this album. I just would like to finish saying that all of the music that I spoke today about, I will leave YouTube links on the description below for at least one song for each band. So if you happen to be curious about this music, check it out. And see if you like it. Maybe you will go and search these CDs as well. If you do, I would be really pleased about it, because I've helped for you to get hooked on some kind of music. The other thing is, really, thank you very, very much for the support on my first video. I know the editing was really bad, and I'm not really sure if the editing on this one was good, because I will finish it later, of course, I'm recording now. But I I hope you enjoyed watching this talks of mine. For now, guys, it's all. Thank you very, very much for watching me, for sharing, for liking, for subscribing to my channel. It's really nice to have this following, and I'll see you next time. See you. Até mais. Do zobaczenia.